Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here. In today's video, we're going to take a first look at the Week 2 NFL slate. We're going to break down this slate position by position, give you guys some of my early thoughts, what I see early on in the week. I am recording this video on Monday afternoon. I'm going to post this video on YouTube Tuesday morning. So, these are my first looks. I really haven't done any research, haven't really dug deep into the slate at all. I'm just going to be going through the positions and just, skimming through the positions, talking about the guys that really stand out to me early on in the week. We'll look at Draftkings pricing, and we'll hit on some guys that stand out there. We'll talk about some players that I do like, over on Yahoo as well. Just before we do get started, guys, as always, would appreciate it if you would hit that like button down below. I do always appreciate the likes. And be sure to hit that subscribe button as well if you are new here. I am uploading a ton of NFL content right now. I'm really trying to, get into the NFL grind and really focus on NFL with it garnering so much attention right now. I'm still getting up, NBA videos. I will have an NBA video up for Tuesday's slate because we do actually have 2 games on Tuesday. But right now it's mainly NFL for me, 3 to 4 NFL videos a week. I'll have my first look video going out at the beginning of the week, which is obviously what you're watching now. I will have a video up for the Thursday night showdown slate, which will most likely be posted Wednesday morning. I will have a video, my full thoughts video, for the main slate. I'll be uploading that Friday morning. And then I will have a video for the Monday night showdown slate. That'll go up probably late Sunday night. So still getting out a ton of NFL content, guys. Probably 4 videos a week. Might even add some more, if there's video ideas I come up with as the season progresses. But yeah, let's go ahead and take a first look at this slate. We will start off at quarterback. Really just kind of skim through the position. I saw last week my first look video was like almost 50 minutes long. I don't want to go that in depth for this video. I'm going to try and keep this one around 25 to 30 minutes. So we'll just, hit on a couple guys. Won't talk about every single player at the position. I'll go more in depth in my final look video, which will be posted on Friday. So yeah, at the top, you got Lamar Jackson, 8,200. Obviously a great play this week. I mean, right now this Houston game, I believe it does have the highest total on the slate. Baltimore-Houston coming in with a 52.5 total, which I'm pretty sure is highest on the slate. I think second highest is Atlanta-Dallas right behind them with 52 total. It's a really good spot for Lamar Jackson. This Houston secondary, this Houston defense in general, their pass defense, I'm not too concerned with. Lamar's pretty much matchup proof to begin with. So he's a great pay-up option this week. He's 8,200. He's expensive, but by all means, if you can play him, go ahead. But I think, the 6K range, kind of like last week, we do have a lot of strong plays in the 6K range that I like. I do prefer Lamar over Patrick Mahomes. If I'm going to pay up to the top, for one of those 2 guys, I think it would be Lamar for me. But this mid-range, a lot of strong plays here. I think both quarterbacks in the Atlanta-Dallas game make a lot of sense. High total, a game you expect to have a lot of points. Should be a close game as well. You got Dak Prescott for 6,800, Matt Ryan for 6,600. I'm going to have some interest in both those guys this week. Josh Allen as well against the Dolphins. The Dolphins did add some pieces to their secondary. They did get Byron Jones. They do have Xavier Howard, who's now healthy again. But I'm still not too worried about, that Miami secondary in general. I think it is a really good matchup for Josh Allen. He was one of the highest scoring quarterbacks in week 1. This is a guy that does have a lot of upside, has a lot of, rushing ability, can give you upside with his legs or through his legs, I should say. So he's another guy at 6,700 that really stands out. But I think like the clear-cut play this week, I mean, he's probably going to be the highest on quarterback, or he's for sure going to be the highest on quarterback, but DraftKings definitely messed up here. Kyler Murray, only 6,100 against the, Washington football team. I mean, Kyler Murray looks like a great play here. He's really, affordably priced on Yahoo. He's not as cheap there. Like, as you can see on Yahoo, I mean, like Russell Wilson, if you're playing that Sunday night game, it's a tough spot for Russell Wilson against the Patriots, but he's the same price tag as Murray. Matt Ryan's actually cheaper than Murray. Deshaun Watson's cheaper than Murray as well. Tom Brady's pretty cheap on Yahoo, but I still like Kyler Murray as well on Yahoo at $33. I just think he looks like the top quarterback play this week when you factor in price. I mean, he was great in week 1, even in a tough matchup against the 49ers. Completed 26 of 40 passes, 230 passing yards, and a touchdown. Also did have 91 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. I mean, Kyler Murray, like, he's up there with Lamar Jackson in terms of, best scrambling quarterbacks, guys that can legit rush for 100 yards. Like, I'm pretty sure Kyler Murray did have some 100-yard rushing games last season. I can actually check that real quick. I'm pretty sure he was close to it, if not, if he did get there. But let's see here. His rushing yards, did he have any games over 100? He did have a 93-yard game against the Bengals, so Hasn't had a 100 rushing yard game yet, but he's got that kind of upside in him. A great scrambling quarterback. This is a fantastic spot. I'm not too worried about Washington's defense. This is definitely a spot where I think we can attack them, and this is just a misprice on Kyler Murray, in my opinion. He's going to be probably one of the highest, upside QBs in fantasy this season. He's going to be up there with, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes. Not saying he's going to outperform those guys, on the season, but he's probably going to finish as a top 5 fantasy QB if I had to guess. I mean, he's got some weapons in Arizona. He's got, obviously DeAndre Hopkins now. Still got Christian Kirk. Still got Kenyon Drake, a really explosive back, out of the backfield. I like Kyler Murray a lot. I think he really stands out as kind of the, my early look QB. As the week goes on, maybe I'll do some, more digging and I'll find some other guys. But for right now, when I pulled up the pricing for the first time, Kyler Murray was really the guy that caught my eye, and I just thought, it was too cheap for the matchup. So I do like him a lot. If we're going under 6K and maybe looking for some potential value, I think Jared Goff could be interesting at 5,800. I think this game could sneakily shoot out between the Eagles and the Rams. It was kind of concerning, though, how much the Rams ran the ball on Sunday night. I think they ran the ball like 40 times. I know Malcolm Brown got like 20 touches. Cam Akers got like 15 touches. So that's a concern. I think the Rams are going to be a pretty run-heavy team this season. But 5,800 for Goff, I think he's interesting. Gardner Minshew as well, coming off a really good week. Minshew had a great score in week 1 against the Colts. It wasn't as good as I thought, but he did throw for 3 touchdowns in week 1 against Indianapolis, did lead them to a comeback victory, completed 19 of 20 passes, was very efficient, 173 passing yards. I think he's viable. Tennessee big favorites here, so Jacksonville, you expect them to be playing from behind. He's a cheap option you could look to. Mitchell Trubisky, it didn't look great for him at the beginning of the game Sunday, but he managed to bounce back, in the second half and pretty much salvage his day. He did actually have a pretty good game last week against the Lions in their comeback win. Finished with 24 fantasy points, 242 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. He's really cheap this week and gets the Giants at home. I think that is a pretty favorable spot for Mitchell Trubisky. He looks like a viable cheap option if you are going to, really go cheap at the position. Even Dwayne Haskins, I know he wasn't too good last week, but 5,100. I mean, if Washington can put up points here, this game does have some sneaky shootout upside between the the Washington football team, and the Cardinals. I think Haskins is another viable cheap option, along with Trubisky. If I'm going under 6K, those are probably my 2 favorite guys if I'm going to really punt quarterback. But in the 6K range, I think this is where we really want to live. Matt Ryan, Dak Prescott, Kyler Murray, these are the guys that really stand out. Even Deshaun Watson, I know it's a tough matchup for him, but 6,400 for Watson against a game that has a really high total, or in a game that has a really high total. He's a guy that stands out as well. But we kind of hit on a few quarterbacks I like. Let's move on to running back now. I mean, at the top, Christian McCaffrey, you can play him every week. This is probably one of the tougher matchups you can get, though, against the Bucs. I mean, I know Kamara scored twice on Sunday, but Kamara was really inefficient. I think he had like 16 carries for like 18 yards. I mean, he was just getting stuffed by this Bucs defense. He managed to, hit value because I think he had like 5 catches. He got 2 touchdowns. I mean, Tampa Bay, it looks like they're going to be a pretty stout run defense once again. So it's not a good matchup at all for Christian McCaffrey, but he just gets so much volume. He still played like over 90% of the snaps. I mean, I think Mike Davis, I think he played like 2 or 3 snaps. I don't even think he got like any carries at all, though, last week against the Raiders. Let me check that. I don't think they have pulled the game log up yet. Let me check it on Yahoo because they update their game logs the day after. So Davis he didn't play, or he was on the field, I'm pretty sure, but he didn't touch the ball at all. I mean, like, this is Christian McCaffrey's backfield. He's going to play almost every snap as long as he, doesn't get hurt or anything. I mean, he's a fantastic play. He's 10K once again, but Christian McCaffrey has 30-point, 35-point upside every week. It may be tough to pay up for him, but we do have some, potentially cheaper options at running back we could look at this week. We do have some value at tight end as well that I like. By all means, if you want to pay up for CMC, go ahead. He's a fantastic play, even in a bad matchup. I still like CMC a lot this week. But again, there's some stronger plays for cheaper, like guys in really good spots that are coming in, $2,000 less. You got Ezekiel Elliott in a high total game against the Falcons. I think he looks very appealing at 8,200. Chris Carson was able to do some damage against them on Sunday. Did have 2 receiving touchdowns. Zeke, will get some work in the passing game. He was really good on Sunday night. I would expect him to, have a really good game again. So he's very interesting. Derrick Henry, I think, looks like a great play. 7,900. We'll have to see how he does Monday night. I am recording this video before that game starts. I'm recording this before Monday Night Football, but I mean, Henry, we know he's just going to get a ton of volume. Tennessee is going to run the ball a ton, and this Jacksonville defense is for sure going to be a defense we want to pick on this season. I expect they probably have one of the worst defenses by the end of the year. Their run defense is not going to be good at all. We saw the Colts pretty much run all over them on Sunday. I like Derrick Henry a lot. Honestly, when you factor in price, he might be my favorite option to pay up for at running back this week. At least just early look. Maybe as the week goes on, I'll change my mind. But for right now, I like Derrick Henry the most at the top of the position. I think he's the guy I like, above 7K. There's there's other viable options like Zeke, like Christian McCaffrey, even CEH at 7,400. He had a really good week last Thursday. Was able to produce, played a ton of snaps, I believe. Got good volume as well. Finished with almost 20 fantasy points. Got 25 carries. Didn't get any work in the passing game, though, or did get 2 targets but 0 catches. I don't expect that to continue, though. I mean, this is a very good pass-catching back. I assume, as the season goes on, he is going to be involved in the passing game. It was great to see him get 25 carries, in their Week 1 win against the Texans. CEH is for sure viable. He's not as... I don't like him as much on Yahoo because he's the second most expensive running back. Like, I would rather play Henry at 34. I'd rather play Zeke at 33. But I definitely like him on DK where he's 7,400. Then in this mid-range, Austin Eckler had a very disappointing week, but he's still nicely priced on Draftkings for 6,500. It was concerning that he didn't get as much volume in the passing game. Only got a few targets in Week 1. I believe he finished with, just 1 target, 1 catch for 3 yards. Did get 19 carries, though, so he still got 20 touches last week against the Bengals. I mean, this game has a lot of shootout potential if the Chargers can keep it close. Right now, they are 8.5-point home dogs. But if they even get behind, we know Eckler will be involved in the passing game, or at least he should be. Tyrod Taylor is not a guy that passes to running backs much because when Taylor gets under pressure, he's not really going to look to dump it off to the running back. He's going to look to scramble, whereas Phillip Rivers would always look to dump off to Eckler. So I think Eckler does take sort of a hit with Tyrod Taylor in at QB now, but he still feels a little bit too cheap this week. I think he's viable in the 6K range for 6,500. You could for sure look there. I mean, if Miles Sanders plays this week and he's not limited, for 6K, we were all going to be on him Week 1, and he wound up out. With his price coming down, he was 6,300 Week 1. He's only 6K this week. I'm going to have some interest in him for sure if he's not limited, but I assume that he most likely will be in some sort of a or be on some sort of a limit. We'll see some sort of a work or like what am I trying to say? A committee, I should say. They'll probably involve Boston Scott once again. Corey Clement might get a few touches. As the season goes on, though, Sanders should take over as their workhorse running back and be a guy that, regularly gets 20, 25 touches a week. Just not sure if that's going to happen early on in the season with him, dealing with this injury. But even Kenyon Drake against Washington, 5,900. He didn't have the best week last week, I'm pretty sure. Didn't do that well. Let me see if I can find him. Sucks that DraftKings doesn't update their game logs the day after. Yeah, Drake finished with 13 fantasy points, but got his normal workload, 18 touches, 16 carries, 2 targets, 2 receptions. Did get into the end zone. I like a lot of Arizona guys this week against Washington, and Drake for 5,900 is for sure viable. But I think the talk of the town at running back this week is for sure Jonathan Taylor. So Marlon Mack out for the season, got injured. Jonathan Taylor is clearly going to be the starting running back for the Colts this week. He showed a lot of upside, once he got a lot of volume after Mack went out. He did get a lot of work in the passing game as well. He finished that game with only 11 fantasy points, but got 6 targets, 6 catches for 67 yards. Did get 9 carries as well, so got 15 touches. Mack did play, I believe, about the first quarter. I can't exactly remember when Mack got hurt. I think it was like late in the first quarter or early second quarter. So, I mean, if you factor in that Mack maybe doesn't play that whole game like he's not going to this week, then there's a chance Jonathan Taylor gets about 20 touches, which is what I assume he probably gets this week. Obviously, they're involving him in the passing game, which we love to see. I mean, he's just going to be too cheap this week. He's only $19 on Yahoo. I mean, that's just a misprice in my opinion. He should be up there with guys like Sanders, Gurley, Mostert. Like, he's just too cheap this week. 5,700 on DraftKings I think is a misprice as well, especially because, DraftKings, you get full PPR score, or it's a full PPR scoring site, so getting running backs that are involved in the passing game is crucial on DraftKings, and that's the case with Jonathan Taylor. This Vikings defense, I mean, they just got shredded last week against the Packers. Aaron Rodgers and Aaron Jones both had very good games. I think Jones, not as good, but Rodgers torched them through the air. I still don't expect Minnesota to be that great against the run this season, especially since they lost Everson Griffin. So I really like Jonathan Taylor, 5,700 on DK. I mean, he's probably going to be popular this week, but makes a lot of sense, especially early on in the week. Like, he's one of the guys that just really catches my eye. Le'Veon may be out for the Jets, so that could be a spot where we find some value, maybe with a guy like Josh Adams. I'm pretty sure he is really cheap on DraftKings. Yeah, he's only 4,400. It's a brutal matchup, but you would assume he gets more volume if Le'Veon winds up out, so he could be viable. But I want to talk about Ronald Jones. He's another guy that I like a ton. Great matchup for him against the Panthers. This Panthers run defense was pretty much the worst run defense in football last season, and it doesn't look like much is going to change this season. They got absolutely torched by Josh Jacobs on Sunday. Jacobs had 3 touchdowns, had a monster game. It seems like Ronald Jones is going to be the Bucs' #1 running back. I think he got 20 touches in week 1 in their loss to the Saints. Let me just double check that real quick. He got 17 carries and 3 targets and 2 catches, so he got 19 touches last week. I'm pretty sure Leonard Fournette barely played. Like, he only played 8 or 9 snaps. I think LaShawn McCoy played more than Fournette did. He played about 20 or 25 snaps. I can't exactly remember off the top of my head, but Ronald Jones was the clear #1 back for the Bucs in week 1, and they already came out and said during the offseason that, even though they picked up Leonard Fournette, that Ronald Jones is still going to be their guy. This guy, he has upside. He's an explosive running back. He can catch balls out of the backfield, and it's a fantastic matchup. Worst run defense in football, in my opinion. The Panthers losing, Luke Kuechly. You don't expect that to make their run defense any better. It's a fantastic spot for Ronald Jones. I like him a lot on both sides. At $19 on Yahoo, I don't think he's going to be that popular. So he's a guy I for sure am going to be on in tournaments. And on DraftKings, where he's only 5,200, I think he's for sure cash game viable at that price tag. He's probably going to be a very popular play this week, but is another guy that I really like. Taking running backs against the Panthers, that's going to be something that we want to do this season. So I like Ronald Jones for sure in that 5K range. Him and Taylor both look like excellent plays in the 5K range. J.K. Dobbins, it was kind of it's not what you want to see for fantasy with Baltimore with their running backs. They pretty much had like a 33%, or they pretty much evenly split the carries between Dobbins, Gus Edwards, and Mark Ingram. Dobbins, though, did wind up getting like all the touchdowns, which was one of the reasons he had the better game between the three. But it wasn't like Dobbins was running away with the volume. It's not like he got 25 touches. I'm pretty sure he got like 10 touches, if I'm not mistaken. Let me check that real quick. Yeah, he got 7 carries, and that was it. He just got 2 touchdowns. That's really the only reason he even had a decent game. I'm not going to chase that. I'll let other people chase that. Not a guy I'm going to be on this week. I really don't think there's much to talk about under 5K. The value at running back, at least right now, not much that stands out. Cam Akers, even though he was the Rams starter, he still got outperformed by Malcolm Brown. I think Akers is eventually, going to be their #1 back and going to get the majority of the touches. But for now, I'm not sure if that's going to happen. So tough to consider him. Like I said earlier, Josh Adams, if Le'Veon winds up out, could be viable. I forgot his first name. James Robinson. So James Robinson was someone that I did have some interest in week 1. I did have some amount of exposure to him. I think I had like 15 or 20% of him. He wasn't too popular week 1. He did get a lot of volume. He just wasn't very efficient. Didn't get any work in the passing game, though. Let me pull up his game log from last week just so you guys can see. So let's go to Robinson on Yahoo. So he got 16 carries last week against the Colts, 62 rushing yards. Only got 1 target, but did have one target was for a 28-yard catch. I mean, not a great game overall. Wasn't too efficient, but it seems like he's going to be their #1 running back. It was him and Chris Thompson pretty much just getting all the work at running back. I mean, he's viable as a cheap option. If he's going to get close to 20 touches again, and he's only 4,400, like, he's a guy that you could look to for value. I still like Ronald Jones more, and I still would want to get up to Jones if possible. But I guess if you are going cheap, then he is viable. But that's really it for me at running back, at least, first look, what I see early on. As the week goes on and I'm able to dive deeper into the slate, maybe there'll be some other guys I, really key in on. But for now, I really like Jones and Taylor in that mid-range. At the top, you got Derrick Henry, Zeke, obviously CMC you could go to, even Austin Eckler, I still would have some interest in. But moving on to receiver, so Davante Adams is coming off a huge week. He got like 16 or 17 targets, just a massive target game. Finished with 34 fantasy points, was one of the he had one of the biggest scores out of everyone in week 1. Finished with 14 catches, 156 receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns on 17 targets. I mean, it's possible Adams winds up as the top fantasy receiver this season. It looks like he is just going to get a ton of volume every week. Green Bay really has no one else that, Aaron Rodgers can throw the ball to. I mean, they have Allen Lazard, they have MVS, but you don't expect those guys to really be target monsters and to take away from Davante Adams. So Adams is once again a fantastic pay-up option at receiver this week. If you want to get to him, by all means, go ahead. But since we went with Kyler Murray, I think stacking him up with DeAndre Hopkins does make a lot of sense here. I like the matchup against Washington. I don't expect, anyone in Washington's secondary to be able to slow down DeAndre Hopkins. He's a guy I want to try and pay up for, and, he is coming in cheaper than Adams, so that is somewhat appealing. You're getting him $6 less on Yahoo. He's coming in $400 less on Draftkings. DeAndre Hopkins was another guy that got massive volume in week 1, 16 targets, 14 catches, 151 yards. I mean, it looks like he's going to be another, high volume receiver this season, just like he was last season. I thought with him going to Arizona, that was probably a boost for him. Getting with Kyler Murray, being a guy that's just going to get a ton of volume, it would help his fantasy upside, and that's, at least in week 1, that was the case with him getting 16 targets, even in a tough matchup against a good 49ers defense. Still had a big game. Now he gets to face Washington, a team we definitely want to pick on this season. I don't expect their defense to be too good overall. At least their secondary. Their defensive line is actually pretty good. They have Montez Sweat. They have Chase Young. I mean, they were getting all kinds of pressure on Carson Wentz on Sunday. So maybe they get some pressure on Kyler Murray. But we know Murray is such a good scrambling QB. He'll still, keep plays alive with his feet, find a way to get his guys the ball. I think Hopkins gets a ton of volume once again. I like this spot a lot for Arizona. I'm going to be stacking up Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins for sure. Probably my favorite, early look QB receiver stack. I think that's probably my favorite one early on in the week. You could obviously go to Davante Adams. Julio, I think at 7,400 is for sure viable. Another high-scoring game this week. Julio was pretty good last week. 100 yards, I'm pretty sure he had double-digit catches, so he finished with 25 Draftkings points, even without finding the end zone. Another game this week where, expect it to be close, expect to be high-scoring in a dome. I definitely like Julio. Thielen at 7,200, he kind of salvaged his day last week. He was really disappointing, but then salvaged it late in the game, kind of in garbage time, catching 2 late touchdowns. I think if I'm paying up a receiver this week, I like Hopkins, Adams, and Julio the most, at least early on in the week. Even Godwin, against Carolina. Carolina's secondary is going to be another, pretty bad secondary this season and going to be another team we want to pick on. But yeah, I think it's those 3 guys, Hopkins, Adams, and Julio. Now, scrolling through the 6K range, Stephon Diggs against the Dolphins, even though they did make a lot of good additions to their secondary and got Byron Jones, still have Xavier Howard. I still like Diggs at 6,500. Robert Woods is going to be a volume monster this season. He's only 6,400, another guy you could look to. Mike Evans was terrible last week, managed to salvage his day with 1 catch for 1 touchdown. That was pretty much all he had the whole game against the Saints. Well, now he gets a much better spot this week against a really bad Carolina secondary, so I'm definitely interested in Mike Evans, especially because he's coming in, a decent amount cheaper than a guy like Chris Godwin, coming in $600 less. Amari Cooper, against the Falcons, a game you expect to be high scoring, could be a shootout. Cooper looks interesting at 6,300. Had a tough matchup with Jalen Ramsey last week, but gets a much better spot here against Atlanta. Even Will Fuller, I think Fuller's going to be a target monster this season. It's a brutal matchup for him against Baltimore, against probably one of the better defenses in the league, but Fuller got, I think, close to double-digit targets in week 1. Should consistently see around 10 targets a week as their number 1 receiver, with DeAndre Hopkins no longer on the team. I do have some interest in Fuller, but, in the 6K range, I think that's what stands out, at least early on in the week. Now, getting down to the 5K range, if you're stacking up Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins, and in tournaments you want to run it back, obviously Terry McLaurin, disappointing week 1, but I still have interest in McLaurin this week. T.Y. Hilton, I like a lot getting back home in the Dome. Hilton always plays better at home. Getting against a Minnesota secondary that just got absolutely torched last week. T.Y. Hilton is a very strong play in the 5K range. I do like him a lot at 5,700. I'm pretty sure he didn't have the best week, even in a really good matchup against a pretty bad Jags secondary. He only finished with 7 fantasy points, just 4 catches for 53 yards. Did get 9 targets, though. I mean, this is a fantastic spot for him. I feel like this Vikings secondary is one we're going to be picking on a lot this season. So I definitely like Hilton. Keenan Allen as well, another guy that really stands out, just feels too cheap on DraftKings. I know he was disappointing last week, but Keenan Allen should not be 5,700 in my opinion. He was one of the guys that just really stood out to me early on in the week when you look at his price tag. He's really cheap on Yahoo as well, coming in at $18. Same price as Devontae Parker, same price as D-Jax, Marvin Jones. Like, definitely give me Keenan Allen over those guys. I really like the price on Keenan Allen. I know, he didn't have a great game, just 4 catches for 37 yards, but still got 8 targets, still had a pretty good, target share as well. I don't think Tyrod Taylor threw the ball much last game, but I'm pretty sure, I think he threw the ball like 30 times. I mean, Allen still got, or 30, 35 times. Allen still got 8 targets out of those, 30, 35 pass attempts. Still had a pretty good target share. I like this spot a lot for him against a really good Chiefs offense. You expect them to put up points. Right now at home, the Chargers are 8.5-point dogs. So you do expect them to be playing from behind in this game. I know Keenan Allen had a big game against the Chargers in the playoffs, for what that's worth. I mean, I don't know if this Chargers offense is going to be one that we want to, go out of our way to play a lot this season, because it looks like they're going to be a team that, plays pretty slow, plays really good defense. That was the case in Week 1 against the Bengals. But I still think Keenan Allen is too cheap this week. $18 on Yahoo, $5,700 on DK. People are going to definitely look at game logs. People look at game logs way more than they normally would after Week 1. So Allen probably going to come in lower owned than he should be. I like him a lot on both sides. I think he looks like a really strong play in the 5K range. Michael Gallup, though, in that high-scoring game against the Falcons makes plenty of sense if you want to go to him at $5,600. Anthony Miller, kind of managed to salvage his day late in the game with a late touchdown at $5,200 against the Giants, especially if you're looking to play Mitch Trubisky. Miller could for sure be viable at $5,200. I know Deshaun Jackson kind of burned me Week 1. He burned a lot of people, but he's still cheap, $5,100. I don't know if he'll see Ramsey or not. I doubt Ramsey is going to shadow Jackson. That seems unlikely, but for $5,100, D-Jax still has a lot of upside when he's fully healthy. That's the case right now, so he's a guy you could look to in the 5K range. Jerry Jeudy, someone I like a lot for the Monday night game. That, like I said earlier, that game hasn't started yet. I'm recording this video before Monday Night Football. We did get word that Courtland Sutton was unlikely to play Monday night. We'll have to see, if Sutton's able to play come, Week 2. What that means for Jerry Jeudy. I'm very interested to see how Jerry Jeudy plays Monday night against the Titans. If he has a big game Monday night, he could definitely be viable at $4,900. Even if he disappoints, I still have interest in him as a cheap option, especially if Sutton, can't go come Week 2. CeeDee Lamb, he actually got some decent volume. He's one of the cheap guys I do want to mention. Last few cheap guys I want to mention. So he did get 6 targets last week against the Rams in that Sunday night game, had 5 catches for 59 yards. He's pretty cheap this week, and now, a matchup against the Falcons, a matchup I like a lot, a game you expect to be high scoring. For only $4,700, I think he's viable as a punt play, as a cheaper receiver this week. If you're going under 5K, he's someone that could definitely be viable, but, I think we kind of covered it all, at least, early look. I know there's a lot of other guys here that I haven't, touched on yet, but that maybe are interesting to you. As the week goes on and I'm able to limit my player pool, I'll try and hit on some of these cheap guys if I see any cheap ones. Like, I know Laviska got into the end zone last week, but it didn't get a ton of volume. $4,200, I guess he could be viable. I think he's going to have a pretty big role in this offense as the season progresses. Will he have a big role early on in the season? That's to be determined, but did get into the end zone last week. I guess he could be viable. But yeah, I really like this 5K range. I think that's where I'm really looking at receiver this week. There's a lot of guys here that feel underpriced. T.Y. Hilton, Keenan Allen, even, Anthony Miller, D-Jax, Robbie Anderson coming off a big week where he got a lot of targets. These are guys, Michael Gallup, these are guys I really like at receiver. Going with these 5K options should allow you to get in a guy like, Derrick Henry, maybe CMC, maybe Zeke at the top of the running back position. But let's move on to tight end. We'll cover tight end and defense pretty quickly. I know I've been talking for a while already. I wanted to try and shorten this video a little bit. So we'll just run through defense and tight end quickly. At the top of tight end, Travis Kelce, George Kittle. These guys are very good pay-up options. They're 2 of the best tight ends in the league, if not the 2 best tight ends. Mark Andrews, though, is coming off a big Week 1, and we saw his snap percentage in Week 1 really rise from what he was playing last season. Last season, he was only playing like 55 to 60% of the snaps a week. He got up to, I think, like 75, almost 80% of the snaps in Week 1. His snap share looks like it's going to increase this season, especially since Hayden Hurst is no longer on the team. And the matchup against Houston, a game you expect to be high scoring, I actually like Mark Andrews a lot, and I think I would prefer him over Kelce and Kittle this week. Maybe that's a hot take, but definitely like Andrews at $6,300 as a pay-up option if you do want to go to him. Zach Ertz is fine as well for $5,600. But if I'm not paying up to the top, tight end's usually a position I want to try and find some value. Hayden Hurst was disappointing last week, but I'm going to be right back on him once again. He ran a ton of routes, played a ton of snaps last week, just kind of ran bad, only getting, whatever. I think he finished with like 5 fantasy points. Like, we kind of ran bad with the Hayden Hurst, 5 fantasy point game. He's going to have some big games this season. He's playing, pretty much every down close to it, running a ton of routes. He's pretty involved in the offense. I'm sure they're going to get him involved as the season progresses. He's going to be their number 1 tight end with Austin Hooper no longer on the team. He's pretty much filling Austin Hooper's role. And I think Dallas, they were pretty bad against tight ends last season. So 4,600, I definitely like Hayden Hurst once again. I'm hoping people will shy away from him because he disappointed last week, but I think he's a great value option once again. Only 4,600. And then Logan Thomas, I said Jordan Thomas again. Logan Thomas, a guy I definitely like, 3,600 on Draftkings, really cheap option. Really good matchup here against the Cardinals, against Arizona. We know Arizona probably was the worst team at defending tight ends last season. I don't know if that's going to be the case this season. It seems unlikely they're going to be as bad as they were last season. But still, a game where you expect, Washington to most likely be playing from behind. Logan Thomas did have a good game last week, did catch a touchdown, did get into the end zone. I think he got the highest amount of targets on the team as well. Was targeted a ton, finished with 8 targets, 4 catches, 37 yards, and a touchdown. Only $13 this week. Was, I think he ran a lot of routes as well, played a lot of snaps. Like, he's going to be their starting tight end, going to get, pretty much all the targets at the tight end position. He's right behind Terry McLaurin in that, target pecking order. McLaurin's probably going to get about 9 to 10 targets a week, and I think Logan Thomas most likely going to be in the 6 to 8 range. Should get a lot of looks in the red zone as well. He is a big athletic guy. Really good matchup against the Cardinals team that, struggled a lot last season against tight ends. Like I said, I don't think they're going to be as bad this season as they were last season, but still, I'm playing Kyler Murray. I'm for sure playing D-Hop this week. I'm going to look to run it back with some guys from Washington, and, that's where Logan Thomas comes into play. I think he's a really good cheap tight end this week. Him and Hayden Hurst are the 2 guys I like most. If I'm going under 5K and not paying up to the top, I like Hurst and I like Logan Thomas. There's some other guys you could look to, like Chris Herndon, got decent volume last week, did not have a great game, but he should be pretty involved in this offense. Got 7 targets, 6 catches, 37 yards. It's a brutal matchup once again, but the Jets are pretty big dogs here. You expect them to be playing from behind once again, having to throw a ton. So Herndon's another viable option. I do feel better about Thomas, but Herndon's in play. But yeah, I think that's probably it for tight end. I mean, mainly Hayden Hurst, Logan Thomas, Mark Andrews. Like, those are the kind of guys that really stand out to me early on in the week. As the week progresses, I'll talk about some more tight ends in my final look video on Friday. We'll hit on some more guys I like. But for now, those are the few that really catch my eye. And then defense, I mean, I really don't spend too much time on defense. Me personally, like, I really spread out my exposure at defense. Like, if I'm playing 20 lineups, not saying I'm going to play 20 different defenses in each lineup, but the max exposure I'll play on a defense is like 20%. Like, I just don't want to be heavy on any defense because there's really, like, it's just such a, random position. You never know what defense is going to do what. Usually I target cheap home defenses, but, playing at home really isn't much of an advantage this year because there's no fans. I mean, just scrolling through some that really stand out, I don't really want to play the Chargers because I want to try and get teams that I think can force turnovers, quarterbacks that will turn the ball over. So, like, I mean, the Giants' defense is so bad, but Trubisky still is not the best quarterback overall, and he will turn the ball over. I guess you could go there. The Colts are cheap against the Vikings, 2,500. You could look there. But, I mean, yeah, that's kind of it for defense. Like, I just don't want to spend too much time here. Really, I just play whatever defense fits into my lineup. As long as I don't have, 3 or 4 guys against my defense, I'll play, whatever defense fits. If I can pay up, if you can pay up, obviously the 49ers against the Jets are in a great spot. The Bills against the Dolphins are in a great spot. But I rarely spend that much for a defense just because the position's so, highly variant. So that's my thoughts for this week 2 slate, guys. Just a first look, what I see looking at this slate on Monday afternoon. Like I said earlier, guys, I'll have my final look posted on Friday morning, going in depth once again, hitting on each position, really doing it all over again, just, kind of giving you guys more information, more analysis, what I'm liking, looking at this slate once again on Friday morning. So be sure to check that video out. Check out my showdown video. That'll be going up Wednesday morning for the Thursday night game. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I appreciate you watching. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button before we get out of here. Click the notification bell as well. Check out the Patreon content that is linked down below in the description. If you want to get more content from me, I do have stuff available on Patreon. But best of luck this week, guys. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.